Hello everyone. In this video, I want to show you how to insert blank rows. So we have a very simple data set with us. We have 5 names and we have the corresponding sales value. What I would like to do is to insert a blank row after every single record. Now the problem is that if we select all the 5 names, select the row, right click and insert, this is what happens. We want to insert a blank row after every individual record. So the way to do that manually would be to click on row number 11, press Control, and then select 12, 13, 14, and 15. Now that these 5 have been selected independently, we can insert by pressing Control, Shift, Plus, or with a right click and insert. And this is what happens. As you can see, we get a blank row after every record. In fact, we don't want a blank row after, or rather before Aaron Bergman. So we just select these 4, right click and insert, and the data looks like this. Not particularly difficult, but not particularly efficient either. The other way would be to sort by creating an index column. To do this, I will first create a sequence. In this case, we have 5 records, so I can put in 5 here. And let me copy and paste special value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once again, copy and paste it below it. Let me give it a name. I will just call it my sort column for now. Now we select all the 3 columns. We go to data and apply a filter. And then in the sort column, I want to sort it smallest to largest. So what is going to happen is that we will get a 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, and 5, 5. So the data is going to look like this. And now we can simply delete the 3rd column. Let's see how we can do this using Power Query. Select the data, insert table. For Power Query, the data first has to be in a table format. So let me do that. Now we go to data and select from table oblique range. Once the data comes on Power Query, all we have to do is to go to add column, and then we select index column. This will create an index similar to Excel, starting with a 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I want to duplicate my table. We want to delete the first 2 columns, right click and remove. Come back to table 1. We go to append queries. And we want to append table 1, 2 along with the first table, which is table 1. So the moment I do that, the data looks like this. All that is left is to select and sort ascending, and you get your result. If you don't want the index column, you can simply remove it. And let me close and load it back into the same sheet. So we want to select in fact, let me put it in a different sheet. So we put it in a different sheet, and here we go. This we don't require. We just need this one. Right? So that's my Power Query output everywhere. Let us also see how to do this using Visual Basic. Now I already have the code with me. It has been provided in the file as well. So I simply want to go to Developer, select Macros, and the macro here is called Insert Blank Rows. We simply click on Run. select the range, click on OK, and you get the result like this. Let me do that one more time. And this time I want to make sure that I'm not selecting the very first row, which is the header. So we go to macros and run, OK, and there's your result. And if you want to look at the Vba code that we have, let's go to Visual Basic. This is how it looks, everyone. Not particularly complicated. So this is what we are doing. We are doing our declarations. Then we are creating an input box to ask the user to select the range. Then we want to calculate the first row. After that, we want to count the number of rows and the number of columns. And then we simply want to select it with the resize. Then we are doing a do until loop. And essentially, we are doing an offset -1, 0, which means we are shifting by 1. You don't really need to learn the code or modify it, but it's good to know that the code is there accessible in case you want to make any further modifications to it. Let us now come to Lambda and see how we will do it. As you can see, I've already created the solution. It's a little complex, hence I've written it here, but I'm going to help you write down the entire thing. So the first thing that I want to do is to do a let, and we want to say that our data is the range, which is B11 to C15. And now we want to get the first row. That means we will say that the first row is take, and from the data, we want to take 1. Let us see the result, everyone. So if I look at the first row, it is simply going to show us the first row. And now what I want to do is to count the headers, which means essentially the number of columns that we have. And for this, I'm going to do a count A of my first row. And if you look at the result now, the count headers is going to come as 2, obviously. Let's continue. Now, just like we took the first row, I want to get the first column as well. And here as well, we want to take from the data only the first column. And if you look at the result, it gives me the first column like this. Now we want to get the first column count, which will be nothing but a count A of the first column. And if you look at the first column count here, everyone, it is going to give us 5, which is the number of records that we have. Now we want to create a sequence. And the sequence would be nothing but the number of rows that we have. So when I say first call count, think what will happen. My first column count is 5. So when I create a sequence, everyone, the result is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But remember, we want to do this 2 times. We want to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and below that, another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So essentially, I want to repeat it. I want to repeat my sequence, and I will simply say that I want to do a V stack, which is a vertical stack of my sequence followed by another sequence. And if you look at the result, it gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But this has to get added to the original data, isn't it? Hence, I will do a H stack, which means we want to take our original data and add this third column to it. So the result here is going to be like this. which makes sense. But then there are a lot of these arrays that are coming in, which are obvious, but we don't want them. We want to show a blank cell, right? So let me put in an if error, which will ensure that if there is an error, then the result is simply going to be a blank. And the result looks like this. Of course, now I want to sort the data as per the third column. So let me do that. I want to take sort data by my sequence. And this will be nothing but a sort on a repeat sequence. We want to sort by the third column. But here's the thing. We don't always know that the numbers are going to be in the third column, right? Because that really depends on the number of columns in the original data. How do we know the number of columns in the original data? We have already calculated that, which is my first call count. So we will say first call count plus 1. In this case, we have 2 original columns. So the numbers would be in the third column. Hence, we are doing the first call count of 2 plus 1. If we had, let's say, 7 columns with us, then the first call count would be 7 plus 1, which is the 8th column. The 1 essentially tells us that we are sorting the data in an ascending order. Let's look at the result now. So it shows me an error. Let me just make sure that we have done everything correctly. So I don't think that would be the first call count, my mistake. We want to know the number of columns, right? Which is 2, which is actually my count headers, right? So let's fix that. We want to change it to count headers, and this is the data. Everything looks great. And the only thing left for us to do is to essentially remove the third column, since we don't really want to show that. And all I have to do here is I have to take a final data here. And we simply want to say that from the sort data by sequence, I simply want to take how many columns, the number of columns that were there originally, which is 2, which is nothing but count headers. And let's make this the final data. And there we go, we get the result. Now, will this work if I have 3 columns with us? Let's find out. Let's say we have the profit and some numbers here. And if I change this to D50, works perfectly, right? Let me save this as a lambda as well. So we simply want to say a lambda, and data is my input, everyone, right? And the rest absolutely remains the same. So let's call this range, and we want to give the range a name called data. Everything else should work. Let's do a quick test, everybody. So when I do this with D11 colon D15, we get the result perfectly. So now that we have tested this, everyone, let me simply copy the entire formula except this part with which we were testing. So I want to copy the entire thing. Let's go to formulas and name manager. We want to create a new name. And let's call this insert blank rows. I'll paste my formula here. And now all we have to do is to simply write equal to insert blank rows, select the data, and you get your result. How cool is that? So in this video, we have seen how to insert blank rows manually using a sort column, using Power Query, using Visual Basic, and using Lambda.